From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy. The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, sure sounds like the door is wide open for changes in 2025, but we're going to have to wait. But what should they look like? And we sum up the rest of the press conferences from Monday. Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Go to the website, everybody, please. Use the promo code warchantbogo when you add items to your cart, and you will see that your total goes down, but your product goes up. Incredible how that works. Buy one, get one free when you use the promo code warchantbogo. Clinically tested, clinically proven to enhance your mood, your focus, better pumps in the gym, immune response, hydration levels, fat burning capability. I mean, it goes on and on. We could be here all day talking about it, but we're just going to tell you off the top, off the rip.
I meant to tell you, I did the focus one yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. I like that. It's like a tropical, like tropical infusion.
Yep.
And I think that's my favorite flavor.
Okay.
I don't drink it a lot because I don't feel like I need the focus. I need the boost, or as I was telling you before recording, the mood. I need a little mood plus on Monday before we recorded this show. But but I like the taste of the tropical infusion, the focus one. Yeah. And I'm sure most of you folks, especially if you're in college, getting ready. Aren't finals coming up in a month or so?
It's not like that, probably. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. All right. So get the focus. Get ready for it.
You can't be Corey Clark, but you can live life kind of like Corey Clark. Just take a little bit of Vitamin Energy, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code warchantbogo. Buy one, get one free. Warchant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source. FSU 1, promo code there. $1 American, 2 months of coverage. That'll get you well into the signing period. High school, transfer portal will be open. Hot boards will be crackling, if you will. It'll be good times. Corey Clark, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, buddy. I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? Did you have a good Monday?
Yeah, it was good. Other than the fact that so my AC went out before I left for the Miami game, and listen, man, I don't want to go on a long diatribe here. I don't trust anything that was manufactured between 2020 and 2022. Just don't think we were at our best as a country, as a global supply chain in terms of checks and balances, quality control. And, my refrigerator, which was bought in 2021, that's giving me all sorts of problems. My air conditioner unit, which was made in 2021, the motor on it blew out. But it's under warranty still, so I just had to pay. Why do I have to pay, Corey, the hourly rate to fix the thing on top of the diagnostic fee? Should the diagnostic fee be like part of the repair?
Yeah, the hourly rate should be included in the diagnostic. How long is it going to take you to figure it out? Well, include that. Buddy, we obviously there's more important things than our houses. I just found out on Monday that I have squirrels in my roof.
Oh, no!
Yep. And it's going to cost,
so
the
much.
quote was about $2,500 to get rid of them and seal it up. We'd like to sell this house sometime in the next few months, hopefully. Stephanie and I will be actually moving in together. That's the next step we're going to take after the marriage is actually moving in together. We're doing it backwards, and eventually I'll ask her to go on a date. We'll go completely in reverse order. But yeah, found out it's better than rats, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's squirrels squirming around up there, and I'm like, why can't they wait till the squirrels come out? Because I hear them fiddling around in my walls, which is creepy. Not much, but like once a day. And then it's just once a day. It's usually around 5 o'clock, and that's it. So they must go out to get food. I don't think they're eating anything in my walls, right? They're not living on that. So can't we entice them to come out and then get rid of them that way and then seal up the hole? I don't know. That's why I didn't get into the critter business.
Right. Yeah.
Apparently it's very, very lucrative. So
it
congrats
is.
to anyone listening that's in the critter removal business. You guys are doing very, very well.
Hopefully they humanely trap them because you don't want the smell.
Oh, I don't care. You kidding me with a squirrel?
I know, but
my history with squirrels?
But you don't want the scent of a dead.
You're right. Fair.
But it's crazy. They'll chew through like HVAC ductwork. They're really pains in the rear, man. They're cute, but then my friend explained to me, he's like, squirrels are just really rats with furry tails.
Well, in athleticism.
Yeah, explosive.
Yeah, they're much more athletic. They got a lot more fast twitch. They're a lot more quick twitch than rats.
Are squirrels elite athletes in the animal kingdom?
They have to be, man. They're leaping up trees. You see them in the road when they go back and forth darting real quick. Imagine trying to cover that as a DB, like as a nickel. They're like the Restrepos of the animal kingdom. They're hard to cover in space. Or maybe Kenny Shaw. I should use the Florida State slot receiver. The last good one, apparently, they had here. No, I'll say Ja'Kai. They're like Ja'Kais. Ja'Kai, I'm not comparing you to an animal. I'm just saying similar athleticism and the way you're quick and tough to cover in space. Yeah. But apparently, hopefully we'll kill them.
Okay.
And get it. No, actually, I don't want the smell in the house. I don't want them to be killed. I'd like them to be trapped and then let go off into the wilderness to go bother someone else.
So I know we got to get to football. So is there a tree that hangs over your house, a limb that touches your roof? Like, how are they actually – because they can't just climb up stucco and then get into your attic, you know?
Yeah. I thought Norvell was I thought Norvell was interesting on Monday, Aslan. Really, I did. I thought he said some interesting things.
All right, so you stole my question kind of, but it's all good. Shout out to everybody on the beat, by the way. I know I'm critical about people maybe not getting involved enough in the press conference, but I thought there were some good questions there. I like the fact that, ballsy, somebody asked him about whether or not, do you fire somebody in season or do you wait until it's over? And then Mike totally deflected it. But listen, he got asked a lot of hard questions. I thought he answered them all face up and didn't get too squirrely, for lack of a better term, if you will.
Well said, Aslan.
But Corey, it was a question that we talked about on the show last week where I'm like, I didn't want to ask him during the Miami game, but I just wonder, can you keep coaching these guys hard to win a football game, but then also kind of focus on what you need to do once you walk off the field against Florida, because that's going to be your last game of the season, and then think about the next season and how you're going to get this whole thing fixed. And I didn't want to play the answer because it was like two good parts in the middle of a 3-minute answer, and it was going to be tough to do it here on the fly. But he did mention, like, listen, we have to go get elite players. That was the word that made my ears burn a little bit. Was he's I think realizing, and maybe that's self-preservation, but like they do not have anything elite on offense. Now, can you go get down the portal in this day and age? I don't know. I was looking at the portal, Corey, from last year, 2024. Evan Stewart from A&M, who's now at Oregon. He's probably
pretty elite.
That's pretty elite wide receiver. Cam Ward was a quarterback.
Pretty elite. The running back at Miami is pretty good.
He's on there as well. Quinshawn Judkins, and that's the number 14 guy on the list. He's at Ohio State right now. But Trevor Etienne was a number 20 guy in the portal. So, the portal is not going anywhere when it comes to playmakers being available. But anything else, or I'm sure there's plenty, but what particularly did you like or stood out to you about the answer that Mike Norvell provided when you asked him that question?
Yeah, because I thought the one thing I was worried about when I asked that question was legitimately like all my focus has to be on North Carolina. I owe it to these guys to focus on North Carolina and only trying to get a win against North Carolina, to which I would have wanted to like shake them awake. Like, Mike, get it together. But he like I'd seen an airplane to go back over 40 years. But it's not I like this answer. I like the fact that he was I think we knew the answer anyway, whether he was willing to admit it or not. But the fact that he was transparent enough to say, because it's a really good sentiment. He said, I do owe it to my players to focus as much as I can on North Carolina, to give them everything I can for this week, the current players on this roster. But then he said, I owe it to the program to think about the future, essentially, as I phrased it, so this never happens again. And I think that's the perfect way to describe it. Yes, you want to win these next 4 games. You're not winning Notre Dame. The other 3, maybe. But you're not beating Notre Dame. So you're at least getting to 8 losses. You might get to 9 or 10. So this season is it's over. Like whatever we wanted this season to be, it's already well off the tracks. So the number one priority has to be, who cares if you beat North Carolina, honestly? Right. Like what is that? All of a sudden, I mean, everybody that's in the stadium will cheer. You'll be happy when you score a touchdown or you get that stop. I was there for California. That was a fun atmosphere when they won. That's great. But 30 minutes later, you're like, great, man. They're 2-7. Yippee. Like it doesn't change anything, really. It doesn't. It doesn't change how you feel about the season. What has to change is what comes next season. So I like that he was willing to admit that. I like that he was willing to at least engage about changes that are coming. He would not say it, but as I wrote in a column that's up on the site now, you can tell changes are coming. I thought that was as insightful as Mike Norvell can be without actually coming out and saying what is going to happen. Does that make sense? Like, did you walk out of there Monday, Aslan, thinking there was still a chance that all the coaches get brought back? I don't know if you thought that. You probably didn't think that anyway.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's willing to engage even in that conversation.
But he did frame it within players and personnel. But he can't say that.
Not with Kurt. When Kurt asked him about the coaching, making coaching changes in season, he did come back to we evaluate everything, and we evaluate everybody in every part of this program. So again, without him coming out and saying, "Yeah, gonna have a whole new offense next year, gang. Whole new wide receivers coach, new O-line coach, new running backs coach, new tight ends coach, and a new play caller. It's all coming." Short of saying that, I did get the impression, number one, that maybe not a whole new offensive staff, but there are going to be, obviously there are going to be some drastic changes to the offense. Hopefully, and my hope is that it's a new person calling plays, but maybe it isn't. But I thought he was interesting in that too, right, Aslan? I thought that was an interesting part of the press conference.
Yeah, it's like this.
That was Ira's question, right?
It was.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, all of us, we elicited some good questions. I feel like my presence there, I hadn't been to one of those in about a month. Even Adam Fuller was like, good to see you again, Corey.
Yeah.
I thought that raised everybody's game. Am I wrong on that front, you think, Aslan?
High tide rises all ships.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I thought anyway. That's the impression I got.
Corey High Tide Clark.
Brought it. Yeah, everybody did. Yeah, call me High Tide.
That was awesome. Yeah, he kind of mentioned it before, kind of, I don't know, diplomatically that, I've been calling plays for a while and it's gone pretty good historically, but then I felt like the way he phrased it on Monday was very, I don't want to call it defiant because I don't think anything he did, I don't think it was defiant, but whatever's maybe like 2 notches below defiant, that's what it kind of registered to me.
We haven't been very good offensively this year. And, I've been, throughout my career, I've had, a lot of years of being a play caller and, they've historically been really good.
And I'm not totally out on him calling plays, but I just feel like you need to show a certain level of humility right now to where I didn't appreciate it fully. He could have fielded that in a different way. But he also did leave the door open that if this team is better with me not calling plays and looking at some other things, I'm open to that. But then it was like, ellipses, ... I've done this for a while, and he had a little Signetti in him almost. It felt like Google me, look at my offenses.
Yeah, I've got the quote here because I was looking at the story I wrote earlier in the day. He said, "I've had a lot of years of being a play caller and historically been pretty good," which is true. He's not saying anything untrue there. But he also said, "I'm not so stuck in doing things a certain way, ellipses, because I can't keep up typing that fast. If my team can be better served with me doing other tasks, I'll always evaluate those things. It's not an ego thing to say I call the plays. I want to win. Ultimately, what can I do to help this team be the best it can be?" So, again, I know that from asking. We were in the room when Jimbo was asked that, when they struggled in 16 or 17, and he's like, "No, I'm the play caller." He wasn't going to give it up, wasn't going to give up to Randy. That was obvious. He at least left a little leeway that it's something he's considering. Whether it's true or not, it's good to at least hear that he's analyzing and evaluating these things, and maybe they really are on the table because, by God, they should be. Because, again, I'm not going to go over it. We all know they have a horrible offense. And as I wrote in the column that is up on Warchant, if he had an offensive coordinator on his staff that was averaging less than 15 points per game and has scored legitimately 1 non-garbage touchdown in 2 full games offensively, he'd have been fired. I wholeheartedly believe that. If Adam Fuller's defense was 130th in the country right now, giving up 44 points per game, I think Adam Fuller wouldn't have talked to us today because he wouldn't have a job anymore. But Mike Norvell can't fire himself because he's the head coach. And it would be a weird thing, in my opinion. It would be a bad look to fire Alex Atkins as if he's the cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that is something like maybe he wanted to fire Atkins 3 weeks ago. But if you fire Alex Atkins middle of the season, aren't you kind of saying it was his fault? He's the reason? When we all – I mean, yes, Alex Atkins is not a solution. But, again, I throw more of the blame at the feet of the guy that put the offense together and is calling the plays. And organize the roster and organize the depth chart and has final say in all offensive matters. He's the bigger problem, but he can't fire himself. So it looks like you're kind of passing the buck a little bit if you fire other guys on your staff in the middle of the season. Me personally, that's why I don't think he would do it.
No, I'm with you on that. What do you think about his clothing selection?
Odd, right?
Yeah.
I even mentioned it in the
You did,
when
I
was
saw
doing
it.
the updates and the it's like he always, if you guys haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's an interesting press conference anyway. But not just for his fashion. But he was wearing like a checkered plaid kind of shirt.
Yeah.
And he's never not worn a Florida State shirt to one of those things, right? That I can remember. Except his introductory when he was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all been Florida State polos or hoodies or whatever he wears. On Monday, no Florida State gear at all. You think he's already been fired? And he doesn't have. They made him turn everything in, like his playbook and Mike, we're gonna need your 26 polos. Bring him to my office, please.
Yeah, somebody point out, why does my head coach look like a youth pastor?
It's not a bad look.
No,
right?
it's fine.
It's just odd because he's never done that before. The other guys all came in with FSU gear on.
Yeah. Shirt wasn't tucked in either. Don't know how I feel about that. Tighten up, Mike.
You're a stickler. You're a
Tighten
stickler.
up, Mike. Yeah, it's weird. Like walking out of that press conference, I felt one way, and then I listened to the Jeff Cameron show on Monday, and then I felt a completely different way.
Well, you would give up cheering for a football team if you listened to all 3 hours of Jeff. You'd just go right into getting ready for basketball season.
Oh, that's the first time I listened to the open, and I listened to the interview, the weekly Monday interview with Ira Schofel, and I think last week I was trying to give you the heads up that I thought maybe Ira and Jeff would come at you and try to push you around a little bit. I don't know if Jeff might have to hold the rope on headlines later today. I think maybe you and Ira might need to be like, hey man, like snap out of it. It's not a cataclysmic absolute horror show and blow the whole thing up and start from zero.
It is all those things. I'm not saying to blow it up and start from zero, but I don't disagree with Jeff that nobody could, that this is awful, this is unacceptable. And I don't even disagree with his notion that Mike Norvell can't turn it around. But it's an opinion, and it's not based in fact, because how would any of us know? I can promise you if there was a Wake Up Panthers last November, everybody would have been screaming about, if anybody would listen to that, the host would have been screaming about, what is Narduzzi doing?
This is what he
does. Why is he
man.
Still here?
That's what he does. One good year every 5 years. That's all you get out of him.
He's on his way to a 3-9 season with a horrible offense. They need to cut ties with him and go to something else. His team is 7-0, everyone. Iowa State 2 years ago. I know Matt Campbell, right?
Correct.
Dan Campbell's the Lions coach. Yeah. And this is essentially the column I wrote. That Matt Campbell was the darling of everyone pre-COVID, I think. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like we wanted him here.
I wanted him. Yeah.
And then Iowa State tanked. And in 2022, not just during COVID, in 2022 they were 4-8. Well, now they're undefeated. Last year they had 6 losses. Now they're undefeated. We all know what's happened at Indiana. BYU last year was 5-7. They're undefeated. So either you think that Mike Norvell just doesn't have the DNA and the coaching acumen that Pat effing Narduzzi does, and that Florida State just doesn't have the means and the resources to put together a roster that is as good as what they can put together in Ames and Provo, or you're not delusional and you do know that it can be turned around. It's not an impossibility. And it basically comes down to which Norvell do you think it's going to be? Like, is it it's like I don't know, man, the Phantom of the Opera. That's not a good analogy. Where you wear a mask. Like, who's the real Mike Norvell?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde?
Sure. Is it the guy that's not even right. There's got to be a better analogy. I'll come up with
Peter
it sometime.
Parker and Spider-Man?
No, it's not like that. It's like the duality of man or something.
Okay.
Like, we all have a devil inside us. We all have an angel inside us. Which one is going to shine through with, I don't even know if that's what the duality of man means, everyone. I might have just made that up. Which Mike Norvell is the real Mike Norvell? Is it the guy that took Memphis to a Cotton Bowl and turned your program into one that won 19 straight games and an ACC championship, undefeated, should have been in the playoff? Or is it the guy that's 1-7? Which one do you believe is the real guy waiting to burst through? Is this an anomaly, or were those two an anomaly, like I asked in yesterday's show? I don't know the answer to that. I do know that, to me, it would make absolutely no sense to fire a guy to spend that much money on, and I'm not like next year if it looks like this again, absolutely. You can't go through 2-10 2 years in a row. I don't expect it to look like this again, though. I believe that he will get it at least somewhat regular, balanced to where you're in a bowl. That's not too much to ask. But he could turn it around and win 10 games. We have no idea. But I know the right answer isn't to fire him now after 8 games. It's not like we dreamed the 19-game winning streak, Aslan. That was not a fever dream. That was not some form of mass hysteria or mass delusion. We all lived it. We saw it. We saw the 13-0 season. We documented it. And it's not like that was ancient history. It was last year. So we can't act like this guy can't win at this level. He's won at this level. The question is, and it's a very good question, can he sustain it? And can he build back up from whence he from these depths? And these are all-time depths. Now, he's built up before, but those were somebody else's players. This is now year 5, going into year 6. Can he build back up to where he was just 11 months ago? I don't know the answer to that. I do know there's no guarantee right answer as far as like, okay, yeah, fire Mike. Pay him $60 million to not coach your team. Pay all the assistants to go away. That's another $12 million. That's $72 million. Plus, you're going to have to pay an exit fee to get out of this conference. You also still have the IPF and the stadium that you're dealing with. So you're talking about literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Throw it all. Get Norvell out of here. Who's the guarantee coach that you're bringing in that's going to do better? Absolutely, positively going to do better.
I know, but that's not a really ringing endorsement, though. It's basically
I'm talking about, but it's the perspective of where we are right now, not where we are in 2026. I'm not saying Florida State should just sit here and accept awfulness or even mediocrity. I'm saying there has to be some pragmatism. You're in 2024. You were just 13-0 last season. Your head coach is still the same head coach. He's had an awful season. Does that mean he's an awful coach? I don't know. He's had an awful season. He had a great season a year ago. He had a darn good season 2 years ago. He's had an awful season this season. So is the prudent play to just cut your losses and say no way he can bring them back? Even all those examples I gave you of teams not with the history and tradition and talent base as Florida State can turn it around very, very quickly. Is the prudent decision to fire him because there might be something better? Maybe, but there's no guarantee. And you do have a coach on your staff that I think you believe in because you paid him $10 million a year, that is also, again, proven he can win at Florida State. He's proven it. No, if you go get what are you going to get, the head coach at Memphis? You going to try that? You going to try to play that number again? Like what group of 5 coach do you even want? Because you're not getting a coach from a Power 4 school, most likely, just judging on recent history and the hires that are made. They usually stay put. So, again, I think what all that is to say, it's not financially prudent, and I just don't think it's prudent in general to run a business where the guy has a one bad year. Now, it's an awful year. It's an awful year. It's not even a forgivable year. But he's had one bad year, and you're like, yep, can't win with him. Can't do it. Can't. Yeah, what? So, again, 2023 was just a figment of our imagination. You can win with him. He's got to improve drastically, and he's got to get better players and better coaches around him. This is all Mike Norvell's fault. I'm not excusing this product because it's disgusting. It's gross. But that doesn't mean it can't get better really, really, really quickly. He's just got to do better in the offseason. He got an F last offseason in hindsight. He needs to get an A. But he's done it before. It is possible. Is it probable? Don't know. But it is possible. And it's worth seeing. It's just financially prudent to see if he can fix this. Because in 2024, it is so much easier to fix programs quickly. And again, out of all those teams I mentioned, Indiana, Miami was 6-loss team. They're 8-0. All these teams I mentioned, Indiana, Pitt, BYU. They all
Iowa State.
Colorado was 4-8 last season. They're
Bad
bowl
example.
eligible.
Bad example.
Sure, but it still happened. He also made he hired 5 new coaches, and all of a sudden they're 6-2 and have a real defense. So again, you can't look at that Colorado team that plays now and how hard they play and how physical they are, especially on defense, and not understand that you can get better. You can get immensely better very, very quickly, more so than any time in the history of this sport. So when we always we'd always go back to the Brian Kelly, right? Like how many of these coaches have been good, dipped down, and then gone right back up? And Brian Kelly was the only real example we could use of that working out. He made a bunch of coaching changes, and then he got back near the top at Notre Dame. Well, I just gave you 3 in the last year. Yeah, BYU, I can't pronounce his name. I apologize. The head
Kalani
coach there.
Sitake.
That's my dog. I knew Aslan would know it. I knew it. It's crazy how you know that. And then Narduzzi and Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Plus, Cristobal's team lost 6 games last year. They're 8-0 and going to the playoff this year. It flips very, very quickly. And we need to recognize that 2025 college football isn't 2005 college football. It is not a foregone conclusion that if you suck one year, you are just going to suck in perpetuity until you get rid of that head coach. The people in Ames are very, very happy they stuck with Matt Campbell. And the people in Pittsburgh, all 11 of them that are dialed in to the Panthers and Wake Up Panthers. Is that part of our podcast network, the Wake Up Panthers?
So.
They're very excited that they stuck with Narduzzi. So, again, that was a long diatribe. I apologize. That was essentially my column. But, again, and that's not to say that I know that Norvell is going to turn it around. I don't. I just know it's absurd to just be done with them. Like, let's see. We're all going to be watching with bated breath this December to see the moves he makes, and then we're all going to be watching with bated breath next August when you open up with F in Alabama to see how much better the product is. And if it's a horrible product again that is the worst offense in the country, by God, fire them. But let's see what it looks like next year. That's all the hope we have.
Product always good, always top shelf over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Head out there today, 7 p.m. Trivia going down. Tacos all day as well. Soft shell, hard shell, chicken, or beef. Your choice. Chow, chat it up, chop it up, some trivia, throw some darts, shoot some pool. Watch. Is the World Series, is Game 4 going to be on Tuesday night?
Come on, man. Of course. Yeah. On one of the TVs, yeah, as we're playing trivia. There'll be a hopefully it'll be 2-1 by the time. Not that I want the Yankees to win. I just like a competitive World Series, Aslan. But yes, it'll be on at Corner Pocket.
I didn't want to say this in front of Ira. But kind of want the Yankees to win, but I mean, I'm not proud of it or anything. I just know I feel I regret ever rooting for the Boston Red Sox, so I just want the Yankees to win, just to inflict pain on that fan base.
That's fair. I'm all about that, man. I'm all about that. I also wouldn't want, although I love Freddie, I love what he did for the Braves. It'll pain me a little bit to watch him dancing around on a mound after winning a World Series. So because he should have retired a Brave. And the Braves screwed that up.
Well, if the Braves screwed up, why are you mad at Freddie?
Don't care. He's still a traitor. Anyway, go to Corner Pocket. No traitors there. Am I right, Aslan?
Amen, brother. 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Tomorrow's show, we're going to have, hopefully, somebody from the UNC sphere. By the way, it's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Promo code WarchantBogo. Use it. Send a screenshot of you using it. I'll say your name on the podcast. You can brag to all your friends that Aslan and Corey's podcast had your name on it. But where was I going before this even started, Corey?
Oh, I got something to say, though, if we go back to it. I know. I just said a bunch. But the point I wanted to make, because I don't want this to be lost in that rant I had before the last break.
Another rant.
Many of the rants, is that he's got to make changes, significant ones.
Yeah.
I don't know if that – because I did mean to mention, Pitt – I don't know if I mentioned it. Narduzzi fired his whole offensive staff after 23. Matt Campbell fired his entire staff after 2022, including like a lifelong friend that had coached with him for like 20 years. He also fired the strength coach. Cristobal had to hire 6 new guys after 2022. Dion hired 5 new guys after last year. BYU fired 3 coaches last year and obviously hired replacements. Like, you can't stand pat, and none of those coaches did, and that's part of the turnaround. So I don't want to just argue that he's made good decisions and run it back, but it can be fixed with, obviously an influx of talent and better coaching, better development, better evaluation skills and what you're looking for in the portal, what fits your scheme. All that has to be much improved. But if it is improved, you can be better very, very quickly.
Is there anything to the fact that these are good examples, by the way, Corey? Shout out. Good column.
Thanks, buddy.
Iowa State, BYU have such large, I would think, like the gap between their floor and their possible ceiling. Because listen, anybody in Power 4, you always have a shot, right? Like, there's always, like, the stars can align, the schedule can fall right, you can get a few breaks, and you can find yourself in late October only having 1 loss or being undefeated, and like, oh my gosh, we're in the mix in this thing right now. Cincinnati was the group of 5 school a few years ago. UCF, obviously. I mean, there's, these teams have these huge fluctuations in just how bad and how good they can be. But with Florida State, our floor is expected to be, somewhere like in the 8 wins, like 7 to 8 wins. That's expected to be our floor. And then our ceiling is obviously like a national title. So there's a lower level of variance. So I'm not trying to discount the examples that you brought forth, but is there anything to the fact that, there's wild fluctuations of how you can be at these other programs, but Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, you're always kind of humming around. There might be a blip, but this is not a blip. This is off the screen. This is code blue or whatever, code green, code red at a hospital. Is there anything about that makes it less likely, or is it inconsequential to how confident you are that this thing can get flipped quickly?
I wish they'd order a code red.
Right.
On some of these guys. Am I right, Aslan?
Yeah. Deep down in places you don't like talking about at parties.
Folks, I know we have some young listeners. Go watch A Few Good Men.
Yes.
Just a great movie. Yeah. It's a great movie. And it holds up 30-something years later. Tom Cruise, terrific. Demi Moore doesn't get nude at all. Just straight up in a Navy uniform the whole time. But she's fine. Kevin Pot. It's just Nicholson.
Fine as in like attractive, or she does a good job acting?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a great movie. Rob Reiner directed it. Aaron Sorkin, maybe his first movie that he wrote, that was one of his first movies that became because it was a play that he was a Broadway play or an off-Broadway play that turned into the screenplay that turned into the movie, and that's what started Aaron Sorkin's career.
Look at that.
How about that? Isn't that exciting? But that's a really good point, Aslan, because that's something that I didn't really touch on in the column. It's fair is that Florida State should not be in the same neighborhood as Iowa State and BYU and Pitt, right, in Indiana. We shouldn't be speaking in those terms when it comes to describing turnarounds because, yes, you're right. There shouldn't be as much variance as in as much fluctuation. And moving forward, that will not be accepted. You know what I mean? Like, it's just – I think I'm talking specifically about this instance in time. I do not think that moving forward that, number one, Florida State should give $80 million contracts. None of us were complaining about it when it happened, though. But now that we've seen this debacle, we're all like, what in the world were they thinking? But yes, I think that's a very fair point. There's going to be some fluctuation with the Iowa States of the world. There should not be. You should not go from 3-9. You should never go to 3-9 at Florida State or 2-10, especially when you had a 13-0 season. So I would not. Let's say next year they go 8-4. The next year they go 10-2. The next year they go 4-8. Fire them. Like you can't. Let's hope that's what I'm saying. We want this to be a blip, right? And it's not a blip. It's a catastrophe. But it's how about this? It's a catastrophic blip.
Okay.
But if it's just a blip, and this is the only time it happens, he learns whatever lessons he needed to learn, and this never happens again. He never falls asleep at the wheel or makes these horrible decisions or keeps coaches that he shouldn't keep or trusts a quarterback he shouldn't trust or whatever, trust his offense when he shouldn't have. Whatever the huge mistakes that he made, and there were a ton of them, they can't happen again. But if he learned his lesson, and he is fluctuating in that 8-9 win, 8-12 radius, 8-12 variance, as opposed to 3-13. Like let's lift up that floor a little bit. This is a one-off. This can't happen again, in my opinion. And that's a very good point. That I'm glad you brought it up. I do not excuse a 3 or 2 win season. This is not something you should accept just because this is the nature of college football. People have good years and bad years. No, you're not really competing with Pitt in Iowa State, are you, Aslan? You feel you're Florida State. You should be competing with the likes of Georgia, Ohio State, Pitt, Penn State. Teams like that, and you're not Clemson, and you're not really right now because of this awful season. So yeah, that's a fair point. I think Miami is where you want to be. Like Miami, I think is the. I don't want to say.
Miami is all roster, right? I mean, they got the same coordinators. Yeah. Same coaching staff. It's all talent acquisition.
But he also put together a coaching staff that could utilize that talent. Like it was a nice marriage of an OC that ran an offense that Cam Ward was very, very comfortable in, and he got playmakers for him. So he deserves some credit. It took a year because Van Dyke got hurt and wasn't very good, and they had to play freshmen and all that nonsense from last year. But the offense was in place that made Cam Ward want to come there and be a success. right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just wonder, like, where's Florida State on that spectrum of do
No,
they
I
need
meant,
it? But
yeah, like
to-
the
I think
point I was
Ira-
trying to make.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say the point I was trying to make, and then I'll let you talk, Aslan. Golly, quit letting me talk so much. Was Miami's? They were 7 wins last year. This year they're going to be 11. That's the variance you're looking for, right? You want your down years to be 7 or 8 wins.
Yeah.
You don't want them to be when you're the worst offense in the country. That's not acceptable. You're going to have down years, though. This is going to happen. There are going to be ebbs and flows to your program. They can't ebb this poorly. I think that's the right way to use it. They can't ebb like this.
And this frequently too, right? You can take one of those maybe every 4 years. I feel like.
Well, I
I
get,
don't-
but I think let's give him some let's give some credit there. Like, he took over an awful program. They were horrible in 2020. They were a 6-6 team in 2021 that just doesn't know how to defend Jacksonville State on the last play of the game. But they were essentially a 6-6 team that year. So they didn't. I don't think he.
But maybe they're 9-4 the next year if LSU knows how to set up an extra point protection.
You mean if Shaheem isn't coached well enough to go fight through there and block that thing? Come on, Aslan. Give Shai some credit.
That's one way to look at it.
But I mean, yeah, but they were they weren't awful in 2021. That was not an awful. This is awful. That was a competitive bowl-ish team. This is non-competitive and an awful team. So I think I wouldn't put 2021 in the same category as 2024. But that, again, it wasn't great. So
I'm just saying I don't know how many people are going to be along for the ride for 11-2, 8-4, 11-2, 7-5, 12-2. Like the whole back and forth of it.
Isn't that what? Don't we expect that to be this sport though? At least I do. I mean, I guess I'm not a soothsayer. I can't see for sure, but I expect every program in the country. Maybe not Georgia until Kirby retires, but every program in the country is going to. The great ones are going to do that, right? Like, don't you expect?
I mean, Clemson's gone through it. Michigan's going through it. I mean, Ohio State hasn't really gone through it though. But I guess them and Georgia are a little bit of anomalies. I don't know if Texas probably isn't going to. It'd be crazy to think
Texas will. I feel like Texas will. They're playing the SEC. They're going to lose 3 or 4 games. It's going to happen. Not this year, but there will be years where they lose 3 or 4 games. Again, it's like the NFL. Like, if your team, one year you're 14-3, the next year you're 10-7 or 9-8, do you then fire the coach? Or do you understand that's just life in the NFL, and you've got a good coach? And again, 2-10 is not 9-8. 2-10 is 2-10. This is a debacle. This is a Carolina Panthers type season. So again, I'm not comparing like a middle of the road, almost playoff team in the NFL to what Mike Norvell is doing. I just think moving forward, collectively, college football fans are going to realize very quickly, yeah, man, it's going to fluctuate a ton. You are going to be really good one year. You're going to be average the next. You're going to have a great chance to get to the Final Four. The other year, you're just going to be hoping to be in the top 25, maybe. And that's kind of the reality of most teams. Maybe not Georgia, maybe not Ohio State, but then we'll see with that too. Like, Ohio State barely beat Nebraska, and they already have a loss, and they might have another 1 or 2 coming. Like, this is a brand new world for almost everyone.
So Ira brought up a good point, I thought, on his weekly hit on the Cameron show, JCS.
Finally. All right.
Where, again, I think, Miami has shown that you can change everything with the right talent acquisition. Some of your other examples, BYU, Iowa State, those might be mostly coaching staff related. And that, I think Pitt's kind of where you want to be, or I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Corey. You can agree or disagree, but I think Pitt might be closer to the blueprint that you want because you're going to make sweeping changes, but then those sweeping changes bring in pieces that they're familiar with. And, maybe Cade Bell isn't familiar with Eli Holstein, but like he brought his offensive line coach from Western Carolina with him. So there's a little bit of that, but it feels like whoever Mike is going to go after when it comes to changing some of these guys on his offensive staff, boy, you sure hope they're going to bring in some guys that are ready from their current institution, because that's probably the quickest way to get this change. Because listen, I mean, I don't know how feasible it is to try to do what Miami did, because they probably spent a lot of money, and I don't know how much money you necessarily have, although maybe you'll be pressed against the wall, much like Miami's NIL was to get this thing right for them in 2024. But I think you want to find a coordinator or position coach that's going to bring guys with him at positions of need, because that makes it just a little bit easier than having to get all new guys to coach up and then new dudes to coach them up.
Yeah, I definitely think that. Like, again, I'm on record as saying I want him to bring in somebody to run his offense or bring in a brand new offense, quite honestly. But whatever it takes, yes, and that person needs to have you need to trust him enough to bring in the people he wants to bring in, the guys that he's worked with before on the coaching staff, and then also maybe a player or two.
That's what I want. Yes.
That is produced for him and that he knows can produce in this offense. Look, man, Indiana. They're the story. They're the darling story right now. We'll see what they end up. They're 8-0. They haven't really beaten anyone, but they've beaten anybody on their schedule, which is more than almost anybody else in the country can say. So hats off to him and great credit to that program and that coaching staff. But he brought in 13 guys from James Madison. He brought in a couple of starters that are on that offense. He brought 4 of the starters are on defense. And they're James Madison guys. They're guys that Florida State, if we'd have told y'all last December, hey, you got 2 linebackers from James Madison, you'd be like, what? Are you kidding? I want the guy from Alabama. Well, the guys from James Madison might be better than the guy from Alabama. They're certainly on a better team, and they're playing better. They're actually playing, and their defense is pretty good. Like, Indiana has a good defense, too. Their offense is great, but their defense isn't terrible. But anyway, the point being, those guys came from smaller schools, and they've produced at this level. I think with Pitt, too, I think he brought some guys from Western Carolina off that team that have played. I think their leading receiver is a kid from Western Carolina. I think he might be their leading receiver and their leading rusher.
What?
I want to say his last name is Reed, but I could be completely wrong. I might have just made all that up, so I apologize, folks. But I was pretty sure.
Desmond Reed?
Yeah. Is he from Western Carolina? Can you click on him?
I'm pulling him up on the NCAA website, so I don't have that access to me real quick. Desmond Reed was at Western Carolina last year. Yes.
Yeah, and what are his stats this year? I feel like he's leading them in both. I think he's one of their leading receivers and maybe their leading rusher, too.
541 yards rushing. And then let me see here for his entire stats.
This is going to be awesome if it plays out the way I just said it.
341 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns.
Okay,
25 catches.
Not bad, right? Maybe not the leading receiver, but certainly doing it rushing and receiving. And he's a guy that was playing at Western Carolina.
With 6 games played, Reed leads Pitt in rushing yards, all-purpose yards, and total touchdowns.
There you go.
He's from Miami Gardens, Florida, by the way.
Okay, well, and what is he? Hopefully he's just a sophomore.
Junior.
Okay, come on, Reed. Pittsburgh sucks. Like, it's a cool city. They've revitalized downtown. They've done some good jobs with it from when I was a kid. I didn't mean to say Pittsburgh sucks, but it's not. You don't have the palm trees and the beaches like you do in Tallahassee, Florida.
Corey was sprung from the loins of a man from the Keystone State, so he can talk.
True.
He can talk
That's
ill
right.
about Pennsylvania.
Scranton, stand up. John Clark was from there, lived the first 12 years of his life, and I'm married to someone that was sprung. I didn't realize that was the Keystone State, but Stephanie is from the Keystone State, so I've got a lot of love for Pennsylvania.
How come she's a Browns fan?
Well, she grew up in Erie. Her dad grew up in Erie. And it was right between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, like equidistant. Okay. And when he was a kid, Jim Brown played for the Browns, and they were very good. So he chose the Browns and basically gave all his kids a lifetime of misery because of that choice when he was 10 years old.
It's all your fault, Jim Brown.
If he'd had a little more forethought, I mean, think about that. Like, most people grow up a Steelers fan because their parents were Steelers fans. There was no choice to be made. You just grew up in the city or for whatever reason. Her dad literally decided one day when he was like 10 or 11, I've got to make a decision. And he chose the Browns. And just the ramifications. I don't mean to speak ill of the dead. He was a very good man, did a great job raising his kids. But if he'd have chosen Pittsburgh, the Steelers, just think about how much more joy Stephanie would have had in her life every weekend for the last, 28 years.
Jameis, though, Jameis going to turn this thing around, buddy.
I'm telling you what, that was good to see. That was really good to see. I hope that continues. It's weird. I don't know what the change was with their offense, but all of a sudden it looked a little better. Even though they got rid of Amari Cooper, it looked a little better on Sunday against the Ravens. But yes, obviously stay at Pittsburgh if you want, buddy. But there are good players out there everywhere, and there are good coordinators out there everywhere. If you get, again, I bring up UNLV all the time. I'm sure they have a couple of players that might want to leave Las Vegas and play big boy football and come to Tallahassee. Again, the beaches are so nice here, Aslan. We got to start selling the beaches more, the palm trees.
We do.
It's just nothing but suntan oil and palm trees and just sand in your toes here in Tallahassee. So that has to happen. You have to make changes, and when they come, bring coaches. That's fine. You can get an influx of talent that way, and it can turn around really quickly. It's crazy to me to think that we were watching that Pitt team last year when Florida State didn't have a receiver on the roster, essentially, besides Ja'Kai. They barely won the game, but they did win the game because Pitt's offense could do nothing. They scored 7 points total, 24-7, if you guys don't remember. That was the final score. And now this year, that same team is 7-0 with one of the top 10 or 15 offenses in the United States. That's how quickly it can change.
They got to go into Dallas, though. They got to go to the Snake Pit. That's SMU this weekend, 8 p.m.
How about whoever wins that game, their OC becomes your OC next year? Just put it all on the table. It's like a loser leave town match, but for real. Like you're leaving your town and you're coming to Tallahassee. Right. Whoever wins that game is coming to Tallahassee as the OC.
Final segment, Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code warchantbogo. Buy one, get one free. Clinically tested, clinically proven. Makes life awesome, everybody. All natural caffeine, no sugar crash. Do it. Adam Fuller, Alex Atkins, John Papuchis. We also got to speak to them on Monday. Corey, I thought my biggest takeaway from Alex Atkins was a pretty revealing admission about Robert Scott and the way he might handling Robert Scott has kind of changed the way that Alex Atkins is going to handle young offensive linemen probably for the rest of his coaching career.
I brought up Rob Scott earlier. Rob Scott was a guy that, when I first got here, he had to play because he was a young guy and he was a better one in the room. And it affected his career heavily because I think, his body has taken a toll of not having true offseason, having to have surgery in the offseason. Because playing that position is a physical position. So if you throw a young guy out there when he's not ready, you usually see a high injury rate, especially for body development and things like that. And so he's an example of, not saying you're not believing in the younger guys. You also don't want to jeopardize their career and their future with injuries because of panic and self-preservation.
That was pretty eye-opening to me because there's a lot of people that just want him to throw anybody out there to get this thing figured out. And I think, he mentioned it with Lucas Simmons a few weeks ago where he's like, y'all talk about quarterbacks getting ruined early. He's like, same thing applies to offensive linemen. So I'm not quite ready to put him out there yet. And he did put him out against Miami, but it was late in the game. I don't know how many of Miami's starters were in there. Now, listen, is UNC as nasty up front as Miami is? I don't think so. I don't know. We'll get a look at that later tomorrow when we do the show, and we'll have somebody from the Carolina beat kind of talk about it, Corey. So, maybe Lucas Simmons if Robert can't go this upcoming week, because I don't. To me, it feels like Robert Scott. You can bring him out of cryogenic freezing once a month and then have him perform. And that's all you're probably going to get out of him because his body's just not going to respond and bounce back the way it does for most guys. So if Darius is going to be unavailable this week and Robert Scott's going to be unavailable, I don't know if they put Rizzi out at tackle and put Andre Otto back on the interior, but maybe Lucas Simmons could be an option if they feel that UNC's not going to be nearly as salty. But that's what I got from Atkins, and I thought Adam Fuller, just him talking to the frustration about the penalties when it came to substitutions, that was the thing that kind of caught my ear the most, but maybe wasn't the most revealing about his overall sentiment on Monday. What did you take, if anything, away from Alex and Adam on Monday?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't, and this is probably not fair, I didn't listen to Alex all that. Even though I was typing most of the things he said, I wasn't dialed in as much because I'm legitimately thinking, how much longer are we going to be talking to him? Is that fair? And I don't mean to be like that, but it's just kind of human nature. I can't envision a scenario where he's back next year. So him talking about the future of the program seems inconsequential to me because I don't know how much of a say he's going to have in it. I did think that was telling, though. I was paying attention during that part where he was talking about, Robert Scott played too early and it kind of beat up his body, and so he likes to play him when they're redshirt sophomores now. And it's like, yeah, man, that's all well and good, but what if your redshirt freshman is better than your fifth-year senior? Like, winning games is more important than their body preservation. And if you have a good enough strength program, by the time they're 20, 21 years old, which some redshirt freshmen are, I would venture most are probably 20, well, at least a good portion of them, they should be able to handle the load of a college football season. Players have been doing it forever. 100 years. I've seen redshirt freshmen play on the offensive line. I don't think you need 3 years to be ready to play college football on the line of scrimmage. I think it helps, but it's not a prerequisite. And that comes back to the development, and it's a good thing to say because it may be when you wonder, okay, why aren't these younger guys playing? Well, he's telling you, well, I don't like to play the young guys as much because I'm trying to get their body ready. Or it could be they're not developing really well or they're not as good as you thought they were. And so you don't trust them to play. You'd rather go with the old guys because you trust them more than you do the new guys because you haven't developed them well, you're not coaching them up well, or they're just not as good as you thought, or legitimately it might be because you're worried about their body and being able to play 4 or 5 years in college football. It was what it was. I did think I thought I don't know if they're actually looking at making a change at center, but they both mentioned Rizzi and Otto, right?
He was asked specifically about Otto, though, for whatever that's worth.
But then he said, Rizzi's been taking snaps at center, too, and Otto, yes, he was asked, I guess, about Otto, but he said Otto, they're still working on him, making the snaps and being able to reach. He's not doing a great job with that yet. So we'll see. It's something they know about it. They know about the snaps. They can see them. And also, it's not like Maurice has been great, even if the snaps were chest high every time. I would have no problem with trying to figure out who your center is going to be next year, just like I have no problem trying to figure out who your quarterback is going to be next year if they're on the roster. Give some other guys a shot. Maurice, appreciate everything you did, man. Legitimately. That's not sarcasm. You were a great Florida State Seminole. You were here. You battled Caden Lyles when they brought him in. You were a very key part of some very good football teams and some huge wins in this program's history, and it's a rebound from irrelevance back to relevance before it went back to irrelevance. Quite a roller coaster there, Maurice. But I would absolutely play somebody else at center at least for 3 of these games.
Really?
Absolutely, because you got to build for next year. And I know Atkins doesn't want to do that because Atkins might be trying to get another job next year. But Mike Norvell needs to figure out if a center's on his roster. So I would maybe at least not every play maybe, but give somebody like you do Luke every third series, bring in another center, and then for Adam Fuller, no, I mean I thought he was lamented the third downs, said he thought they did a good job, and he's right. The corners did a good job covering. He thought the defensive line for the most part played well, and that as I thought was the case. Everybody sees those big runs up the middle and think that your defensive line is getting pushed around. Now, it happens some, but both he and Norvell said it sounded like they were putting a lot of that blame on the linebackers not being where they're supposed to be, missing their fit in the hole and giving a huge crease. Like the linemen got pushed out of the way a little bit, but most of that it seems like they were putting the onus of those mistakes on the linebackers. So, and I thought he was good about Earl Little. So maybe Earl Little will be something we can watch moving forward.
What do you feel about the fact that, both Fuller and Papuchis, I asked both of them about, the front four and how much they need to coach those guys, like mentally and emotionally right now, more so than anything else, because if anybody had expectations on them from an individual standpoint, or at least like a segment, it'd be that defensive line, that front four, but they're all different kind of dudes in their own right. But the fact that Fuller and both Papuchis talked about, Papuchis was like, what I tell these guys is that you put something on tape that you're proud of. Yeah. And then Fuller's talking about team success brings individual recognition. But also individual recognition, you can do something out there that's good for yourself that's going to also help out the team. So I wonder, does that tip your hand at all, you think, to the likelihood that those guys are gone or come back, or those two disparate things to try to connect from those comments?
I think you talk about for the linemen coming back.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you're talking about the coaches.
No, the linemen. Which is funny, because by the way, I feel Fuller is probably a little bit safer. At least I definitely think he's safer than Alex Atkins. But I don't know if he's totally safe. But Fuller the last 2 weeks has had a very, contemplative, placid kind of disposition than he normally does. Almost like he feels that things are kind of slipping through his fingers, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that was just a random observation I saw.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you could justify Fuller being let go. You could also absolutely justify him staying. We cannot look at the what this season has become and put even I don't know 30% of the blame on the defense. The defense hasn't been great, but the defense isn't the reason they're 1-7. The offense is, and he's had some nice moments at times, and the best players on this team are on his side of the ball. So I feel like he should get some credit for that. And the reason they won the ACC last year was because of his side of the ball. So maybe he gets a little loyalty points and some he banked some good things with Mike Norvell, and his job isn't in jeopardy. I don't know. I think it could go either way. But yeah, I didn't really get that read from him. I just think it's hard to be You better be like that when you're 1-7. You need to be contemplative and a little placid. You don't need to be laughing and joking, even if you think your side of the ball played great, which they didn't against Miami. But if they had, they did keep Miami to the lowest points of the season. Cam Ward threw for 150 less yards than he normally throws with, didn't have any touch. Like, there were a lot of things that they did well enough in that game, some feathers in the cap. But the cap's still gross and ugly, and you can't wear it anyway.
And he said that they did not play well enough to beat them. He's like, the defense, we did not play well enough.
That's what he does that a lot. And he also said when he talked about the substitutions and the 2 5-yard penalties for
Can you explain that to me, Corey? I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but I'm looking at your transcription, if you will, and he talks because I heard him say that. Listen, it's all on me, but he says unacceptable at all levels, which isn't totally on you when you say at all levels. But like, how can you? When he's like, we tell these guys there's never an excuse to substitute when the offense isn't substituting. So how the hell are you substituting then?
That's a very fair point. Yes, that's
and
a very
people are
fair
gonna
point.
people are gonna yell out there. How come you didn't ask him that then, Aslan? Well, because that's not the way it works, man.
And I was transcribing. I was too busy, folks. I was transcribing. But yeah, that would have been a fair question. Maybe if it happens again. I think the legitimate reason is because Cam Ward is a very smart quarterback that sees a guy kind of lingering by the sideline, not sure if he's supposed to come in or not, and snaps the ball with like 31 on the play clock. That's really smart. Most teams don't do that. Most teams don't have the wherewithal to have a quarterback that does that. They get lined up hoping to catch you in something like that. But I think just from me reading between the lines, maybe one of the DBs, I know one of them was Noles coming off and Graham running on. And apparently Noles should have just stayed there. Or Noles ran on thinking that he was supposed to come on because it was a third down and then had to go off real quick, but it was too late. So I think that's maybe a DB coach problem or DB coach communication, but Fuller wasn't going to throw anybody on the bus, so he said it's his fault, which he's right. It is. But that's not that's problem Z. Yeah. On the list of problems with this football team, because I thought for the most part they competed pretty well, and he seemed he was. I just like talking to the guy, man. Doesn't mean I'm gonna whine and cry if he's let go, but I really like talking to Adam Fuller, because I asked him the question about Blake Nicholson, the thing that made me so mad yesterday's show, and he's like, he goes, I talked to him about that right after it happened when he came to the sideline. And then I talked to him, the whole team, about it again on Sunday. And the way I framed the question was, it's 3rd and 22. Shouldn't he have more game awareness to think I don't need to be this tight on a guy 7 yards from the line of scrimmage when they need 22? I'm not going to grab him and hold him because who cares? I need to be off him a little. That was basically the way I framed it. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, and we told him that. And he goes, look, if he doesn't keep the play alive and scramble, because he's like, he held him 5 seconds before they threw the flag. But the fact that he held the guy that he ended up throwing the ball to because he extended the play for 5 seconds, that's why they felt the threat. If he'd have thrown it on the other side of the field, they wouldn't have called it. But because that was the guy he ended up throwing to, that's why it came into play, and that's why they threw the flag. And, teaching moments, teaching lessons and all that. But the way he described that play and how he communicated with Blake Nicholson about it afterwards on Saturday and then again on Sunday, it's just I don't know. I like talking to the guy. And Atkins too. Atkins is no BS. Atkins gives you straight answers all the time. They're all good to talk to. So it really does, I don't think pain is the right word, but it does affect me a little when these guys that we've talked to, Aslan, for 5 years, right? And we're not friends with any of them, but we're friendly. We're nice enough. They're friendly enough. We always say hey when we see each other, and they've given us some great moments in the last 5 years, truly, and some really great insight. And we get to talk to them all the time. I don't dismiss any of that. That all does mean a lot to me, and so it does kind of it again, doesn't pain me, but whatever the next word down from that is, that we're talking about their job security. Like I'm saying, he needs to be let go, or we talk to these guys all the time, and they've been good to us. But at the same time, boo-hoo, right? They're millionaires. They're millionaires.
Yes.
They are absolute millionaires. And if they get fired, they're guaranteed of both getting millions of dollars to not coach at Florida State. So I'll only feel bad for him to a certain extent. And they'll both land on their feet and get to do what they love for the rest of their lives, coaching football. But, it's been a fun 5 years, and that kind of adds to the sadness of this season, is that you feel like, man, not only has this been an awful season to watch, but you're going to lose. There's going to be some guys that won't be here anymore. And it's just a little, I don't know. Sad, I guess, is the bet, because I don't have any vocabulary at all, apparently. I've been trying to think of a different word but other than sad or pain for about 90 seconds, and I can't. So I'm done.
Regretful. I don't know.
No, that's not it either. I don't need your help, Aslan.
Sorry. Yeah,
Get back to looking up that Pitt kid.
I was just thinking about, somebody somebody had a really good line that I can't think of about feeling bad for Coach Norvell, and I just thought about that. I was Googling the cars that I see him constantly driving. So one of his cars retails for $178,000, and the other one retails for around $82,500. So, yeah, that's what I tell myself whenever I'm like, maybe I'm going to take it easy today. I'm like, nah. No.
And what's cool about it, though, not cool, but what I truly believe when it comes to him, and why I'm not giving up on him at all, is because I do think he cares. I do think this is very painful for him. And I do think he's embarrassed for the product he's brought to Florida State. Like, in a way, Aslan, I think this is better than 7-5. Like, it is so bad, it is so historically bad, that it is not just a slap in the face. It is taking the back of your head and dunking it into a cold bathtub for 10 seconds, bringing it up so you can breathe, and dunking it back in the bathtub again to wake you up and to make you realize there's some stuff that needs to be changed. But I do like that he is not just going home and watching Netflix and cashing checks. Like, I do think he spends almost every waking hour thinking about what he did wrong. I could be wrong. He might love Netflix. And folks, by the way, I've said it before. It's not a Netflix show, but Disney has Andor, the Star Wars show. It's unbelievable. It's just frankly unbelievable. It's the best. It might be the best series I've ever watched. It's better than Succession. It's better than The Sopranos.
Whoa!
And it's all in the Star Wars universe, and it's incredible. It's right before Rogue One. It's like the prequel to what happened for Rogue One, which is essentially the prequel for Star Wars, and it's just incredible. The guy that wrote Michael Clayton, wrote The Bourne Legacy and all those Bourne movies. Tony Gilroy, he's the showrunner, but it's just a grown-up Star Wars show, and it is awesome. And maybe Norvell got hooked on it back in January when he should have been putting together a better roster, and we have Andor to blame. But, I don't think he's just watching he's just going home not affected by this. He is deeply, deeply impacted and affected by this, and he's got to prove to his constituents and his players, quite frankly, the ones that will be left, that he cares enough to go make drastic changes. And I think he does, and that's exactly what I'm expecting. We'll all get to see it unfold, how it all unfolds in about a month from now.
All right. You want to hang out at practice later?
I do. I talked a lot today. I apologize, man.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just, I don't know why. Maybe it's just I just got done writing that column before we started recording, so it was all fresh in my brain. But I apologize again that I'm yelling at you folks. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to lighten it up a little, add some humor, some levity. I gave you a great recommendation to watch. So I'm trying to be well-rounded, and I still can't think of another word besides sad.
All right. With that, we leave you, everybody, and encourage you to go to vitaminenergy.com. Use promo code warchantbogo. Buy one, get one free. Also encourage you to check out warchant.com. We'll be at practice footage, interviews. Maybe we can twist Corey's arm into doing some observations possibly, or maybe Ira will just go ahead and do it. Also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, get your notifications on, and you'll know exactly when Seminole Headlines goes. 1 p.m., but is it really 1 p.m.? It's like the 3:30 game. Is it really kickoff at 3:30, or is it more like 3:36? Well, just subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Oh, that's true. I was going to say it's like 104, 103.
Yeah. I guess get everybody places, everybody. It's 1 p.m. Places, everybody. Headlines is about to start. So check that out. And we'll be back with another show tomorrow. And the day after that, and the day after that. Because that's what we do, everybody. It's warchant.com.
That's what we do.
Ultimate Seminole Sports Source. He's Corey Masson. Thanks for listening to Wake Up War Champ, presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Promo code warchantbogo.